in ministry, we often ignore our heart, or we kind of negate the heart, or we just kind of put our heart to the side. And if your heart is good, and if your heart is decluttered constantly, I think the things that we do, the words that we say, our intentions will always be good, and they'll always be aligned to God's heart.
Yes.
And it's very, very important for us to always be going, ooh, how's my heart?
Right.
How's my heart doing right now?
Right.
And we cannot ignore it. We cannot evade the things that are happening in our heart, because by default, the heart will show up in our work, will show up in our relationships, will show up in our children.
Yes.
They'll even show up in our home, the way that our home looks. You know, last week was a huge emotional wreck of a week for me. And guys, it's like a bomb hit our house. I'm like, oh my gosh, my heart isn't good. And you know, you get so consumed by the internal that your external is just flipped upside down. You have to stop and go, shoot, finger on the pulse. I'm not okay. What is this? Where is this stemming from? And what do I have to do to address these things?
Yes.
So like write that down. I want you to go away and just go, hey, how is my heart? How's my spirit? Is it cluttered? Is it heavy? Is it doubtful? Is there a lack of faith? Am I too busy? Is my life really busy right now? Okay, I need to do a stock take and analyze the internal spaces so that I can continue to be healthy and move forward. So in lieu of God's plan, and some of the things that Chris was saying on Sunday, you know, a lot of what we do, we can just mask it and just showing up and delivering on all of the deliverables. We're high executors, right? And as long as we can get the work done, we're good, or we give the perception to people that we're good. But, you know, I think He's always looking at the heart. He's always looking right straight. It's not about what you do for him. It's who you are and how you are, and the position of your heart and the disposition of your heart that, you know, really God is looking at. And so just talking about God's plan and really going beyond our hands and going straight for the heart. I was taken to Nehemiah. And, you know, Nehemiah was charged with basically going and rebuilding the wall. And there was a lot of opposition from the outside, but mainly the opposition that nearly killed him was the one from within. And I want to talk about just some things as a culture and as a church and as a leadership team, that if the enemy's ever going to come for us, he's going to probably come straight for the internal parts of relationships, the internal infrastructure of our church, the relationships, how we deal with one another, and ultimately how we deal with opposition within relationships. So just 3 things quickly that I want to kind of point out when Nehemiah was noticing the opposition from within. The people, they grew tired, and they took their eyes off of God and put their eyes on themselves. So the opposition, it starts to really create a little bit of that, you know, when a big storm or a hurricane or a cyclone, it starts with just a little, you know, motion, and then before you know it, it becomes a really big storm. The little circular motions in our community start with people just growing tired. And when you grow tired, guess what? You're like, I don't want to do anything for that person. I don't want to do anything for this team. I don't want to do anything for that vision. I don't want to do anything for anyone. What have they done for me lately? God, what have you done for me? And you start taking your eyes off of, you know, the task at hand or the work before you, and you start looking within and going, what about me? So again, how's your heart? Are you tired? Do you need a day to recollect and gather? Get a mental day to get your thoughts in order, to get your affairs in order, to get your routine down pat? Like, these things really matter. How you are behind closed doors and how you deal with life, like, that's really important to God. Because it's not how you show up on a deadline and what you show up with. It's how did you get there? What's the state of your heart in the process of getting to that place? So remember, they grew tired, and then they started to complain. Okay? Number 2, the enemies got into their heads psychologically. So the external enemies got to the people because they were putting lies. They were putting doubt. They were challenging people from within. They were challenging them by their standards. Their worldly standards started to seep into their minds psychologically. And then there was a comparison that was drawn from God's assignment to the world's standards. And there'll always be a disparity between God's word, God's assignment, God's calling for your life, and the standard of the world. There'll always be a disparity. Do not fall into the trap and listen to the world when it comes to, oh, that doesn't seem right. Oh, they don't pay you. Oh, how much time do you give? Oh, 10%. Oh, all day Sunday and Tuesday and Thursday. You buy coffees. You do a meal train. You visit people in the hospital. You still love them after they did X, Y, Z. That is the world standard. They'll always try to get into your head psychologically because what we do does not make sense. It doesn't make sense. So, listen. There's going to be people in your world that they're going to have their own core values and their own way of doing things. Don't let those people that are standing outside of this speak strength and speak your next steps to you. I don't want to challenge people. If you're going to a counselor, or even if you're going to some kind of psychiatrist, well, maybe not so much that because that's in the medical field, but if you are going to a counselor and they are a non-Christian, they have no context, just be very mindful and very conscious of the advice given, because you just never know that that advice given could be conflicting to the way that you're meant to show up before your enemies, before, forgiveness, when you're meant to be forgiving people, okay? And I think what I'm going to preach on Sunday is basically like the fence, right? And we're challenging for people to step out of the fence, but how do you navigate and toe the line between living outside of the fence in this world of conflict and do it with healthy boundaries? So it's like not a defensive mechanism to have boundaries, but boundaries are actually good, but they're not a fence. So the distinction between a fence and a boundary. So I think I'm going to kind of share around that on Sunday, but I just want us to be aware that people, they might not even be meaning to get inside of your head, but sometimes words stick. And what you think is just a conversation, you're like ruminating over it and going, it's ticking over a little bit too much. And before you know it, they've gotten into like a heart space, and they've gotten into the holies of holies of your engine room of thinking. So just beware of that kind of influence in your life. And then number 3, the people, they abandoned their work and they went back to farming. So basically they're like, I'm actually pretty fearful that by building this wall, like who's going to tend to my farm and who's going to tend to my table? So I need to abandon the work because I need to think about my table. But if you look at the rebuilding of the wall was only going to take 2 months. So if everyone were to just put their hands to the plow for 2 months, they wouldn't have been compromised financially, and they wouldn't have been taken down the road of starvation. They just needed to allot a specific amount of time to rebuild the wall so that the wall can do what it was meant to do to protect them, so that they can be protected and actually farm and actually put food on their table and have resource. So sometimes the strategies at hand don't look like they make sense, but sometimes you just have to go with it, be obedient, because the big thing that you're building is going to release you to do the thing that you need to do most, okay? So Proverbs 21:2. Is this good? Everyone getting something from this? Okay. Every way of a man is right in his own eyes, but the Lord weighs the heart. He weighs the heart. Just weigh your heart. Weigh your heart this week, guys. All right. So that's not even that's not Staffy. That's just the prelude to Staffy. So, all right. So in lieu of like opposition and, all the things that can internally become a threat for us, the title of the Staffy message is called Fighting for Conflict. Come on. Fighting for conflict. Wow. So Matthew 5:23-24 says, therefore, if you are offering your gift at the altar, and there remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar. Go first, go ahead and be reconciled to them, then come and offer your gift. Come on. You know, the thing, I've been thinking about this lately, because when we get mad or hurt or frustrated with people, we tend to go to God for our grievances, and we tend to think that God is just going to take our side. We just think, oh, God, they're so wrong, and you put God on your side, and you almost make God become the enemy of your enemy. And I don't think God works in that way. If anything, God stands in between you and the enemy. And I think he's constantly trying to help us reconcile. And this verse is going, hey, I love you. I love that you want to come to the altar and worship me. I love that you want to come spend time with me. But there's a wedge here between you and this person. And you need to figure this out. You need to manage this conflict. So fighting for conflict is not bad. Fighting with people internally is not a bad thing. If anything, we probably should have more conflict. We should have more fights, because there's spicy people in the room. There's people that are strong. There's people that are opinionated. There are people that are very stubborn, you know, and I think those things, a mark of a healthy community is that you can do conflict and do it well. Now, I am preaching to the choir. I am not a confrontational person whatsoever. However, I've had to learn to be confrontational. And I've seen Chris, he just, not that he, you know, he's not like put his boxing gloves on, lick his lips, ready for a fight all the time. But he's like, if opposition or conflict is at my door, I'm gonna go for it head on. So I've seen him throughout the years manage conflict. He's done conflict really well. And then not so well. Probably starting off in our earlier years of ministry, he was just like a bull in a china shop when it came to conflict. And he's had to learn how to really bring those things together. So seeing that in the early years of marriage, going, I don't like you, and I don't like conflict, and I don't like confrontation, because it just blows things up, and it just makes things messy. So why don't we just like avoid it or evade it? You know, and it'll just eventually die off, and then we'll be fine. But that is a lie. Right. That will not build. That will keep things in ruin, and you will literally have to keep stepping over the rubble of that constantly for the rest of your life. You're better off confronting. I just had to learn how to do confrontation my own way. His style of confrontation is his style. Your style will be your style. My style is very different. And I think more than anything, you just have to find it. It's not like walking on eggshells or dancing around the issue. No, it's going in there with like a very pointed, hey, let's talk through this issue. But I think the Bible's very like explicit about like, hey, go be reconciled. Go talk about it. Go have that conversation. Go get on the same page, because that's really important. So let's talk about conflict, and specifically fighting for conflict, because that's a little bit of a oxymoron statement, like fighting for conflict. Well, we should be fighting for conflict, because conflict is going to really bring things to the surface. It's going to refine and define who we are. Conflict is good. We are wrestling mindsets. We are wrestling habits. We are wrestling things from the past that, you know, we actually need to do away with. And there's people in your world that should be bringing things up in a beautiful, loving way, so that you can grow and get better. Okay, so number one, in conflict, peace cannot survive without your participation. Peace cannot survive without you participating in it. Peace is not something that is going to magically appear in a room, in a circumstance, even in a relationship. You actually have to fight to maintain peace. And it requires the participation of every single person in the party. Two people, both people need to show up. Both people need to participate in the pursuit of peace. There's a conflict. The relationship or the conversation, you know, may revolve around a conflict, but just know that your participation in resolving will birth peace. And you'll maintain peace by both of you coming to the table. That is why it's so difficult to try and make amends with somebody that doesn't want to, or doesn't want to talk about it. Or they just want to ignore it, or they just want to, again, just make the issue disappear. You need two people that are willing to be participants to really create a solution. which therefore will bring peace into the relationship. And please feel free to stop me and ask any questions as well. I love questions. Okay, number 2. Healthy conflict cannot be owned by a few. So in our culture, at People Church, in this context, and this is obviously something you can take into your families, marriage, wherever. But in the context of People Church, like the people in your the specific people in your circles that are confrontational. And often you kind of go around them, you're like, hey, did you hear? And I feel this. And then you want almost for them to go and confront the person for you. You cannot put the burden on a few people. As much as they love confrontation, it's not fair to put that burden on them to be constantly the ones being the voice box for your issue. You actually need to learn to go, all right, this cannot be carried by a few. Has to be a culture that lives in our church, that every single person here, whether you're a department head or you're a ministry lead or sitting on a team or you're part of People College or you're a kingdom builder, I think the conflict and the agenda around resolving has to be carried by everyone. That is a healthy culture. And if we can all lead with that objective, we will be a very light team. We will be a team that will be robust. We will be versatile. We will be pliable and flexible with change and with things, because again, your heart isn't cluttered by an offense. You're light, because we've had those conversations. Imagine being so cluttered in your heart relationally, and then we're taking a left turn as far as a church, and you're like, oh, change again. It's like you're irritable and you're unresponsive because you're carrying weight in your heart because you haven't resolved issues with the relationships in your world. Your heart, trust me, the more decluttered it can be, the more robust, the more pliable, the more flexible, the more loving, and it's just supple. Like, it's just ready to just keep carrying and keep going, okay?
Yes, very good.
So it's not a few people. And I used to learn this a lot. I used to go, Chris, they go. And he'd go and fight and, like, blow things up for me, and I would just be like, yeah, go, kind of hiding behind him, and yeah. Well, he said, but it was my issue, but I was just being a coward. Guys, sometimes we are just cowards, and we don't want to have the conversations. But you need to go before God and ask for courage so you can go address the things in your world, get on the same page, even if you were wrong. I think more than anything, the cowardness maybe was an insecurity. Like, I don't know if I'm right here. I don't know if I'm going to go stand up for myself and I have merit. And that was a values issue for me. I didn't value myself enough to bring my voice into the relationship. So I wanted somebody else to go and do it. And it created a coward out of me. And it actually I was a doormat. I just let people walk all over me for years. And then I was embittered in my room nights without sleep, going, oh, people, I just didn't stand up for myself. I didn't assert myself. I didn't use my words, and I didn't bring my wants and my hurts to those relationships. And so you have to go before God, ask, and the more you do it, I don't know, maybe you'll get used to it and it gets better, but it's always going to suck. You're always going to get butterflies. You're always going to get that angst. You're always going to have that, like, clammy hands. Like, there's a same page conversation I have to have this afternoon, and I'm like sick to my stomach. I don't want to eat anything thinking about it. But I know if I do it, on the other side of that, I'll be better. I'll be, my eyes, they'll have clarity. My heart will be decluttered. It's not comfortable. Conflict is not comfortable, but the benefits of you having the conversation will, oh my gosh, and the peace that comes after that, it's like, oh, that's what you want. It's the aftermath is what you want, okay?
Come on, Pastor.
Okay, number 3, conflict is the beginning of self-awareness. Sometimes you just live in a bubble in your own little worlds, and you're just like, me, myself, and I'm perfect, and I'm cute, and I've got it all together. But conflict has a way of revealing some of those blind spots and those areas that need growth and need character building and need all the things. And I think that's another reason why people shy away from conflict, because they don't want the true person to just come to the surface. Listen, can I just say, we're all here, we've overcommitted. We ain't going anywhere. The good, the bad, the ugly, the disgusting parts of who you are, the areas that you wish you can change, that you despise and you hate. Listen, no one's going anywhere.
Right.
You're not going anywhere. So you may as well bring your whole self to the table.
Right.
Raise awareness, self-awareness.
Yes.
Let somebody speak into your life. That's uncomfortable, honestly, but we're here for the long haul. We're in.
Yes.
We're in.
Yes.
We're not going anywhere. We're not kicking anyone out. We're not here trying to push you out of this community. This is an actual declaration for you to just bring it. All in.
Yeah. Yes.
All in. And the self-awareness, you might be afraid of what surfaces, but we're not. It's okay.
Right.
I think we can deal with it.
Right.
I think we can help
Amen.
you. I think we're going to make it. Guys, we're going to make it. Sometimes you just need somebody to tell you that. We're going to make it.
Yes. Come on.
2023, we're going to make it, okay? So it's the beginning of self-awareness.
Yes. Come on.
And you might not want to see it, and you're just like, I don't want to see it, but just dive in.
Come on.
Head
Come
first.
on.
Go for it. All in.
Right.
Okay, number 4. Your conflict isn't with God, it's with man. Your conflict isn't with God, it's with man. It's with your relationships. It's with your partner. It's with your friendships. I think we often go to God and we blame him. And we want to just shake our fist at him, and we get cold in our heart. I don't want to read my Bible. I don't want to talk to you. Oh, look what you've allowed in my life. Look what's happening in my life for serving you. We get so mad at God, and he's like, hey, I didn't do anything. I'm here. Just go and resolve it with the person. I think we project our, it's vertical, horizontal relationships with our vertical relationship with God. We project all of that onto God. He's like, hey, no, I'm here. Don't your quarrel or your bitterness or your anger, your frustration. It's not with me. It's with them.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm amongst you know, in my presence. I am here. But don't get mad at me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can bring me your frustrations and your anger, and I can help you. There can be an exchange in that moment, where there's a broken heart, or where there's, that Bible verse about turning, the ashes into beauty and your mourning into dancing. We go and God gives us the contrasting thing that we're bringing before him. He's constantly turning those things around. But go to God for a change of heart, not like a bitterness towards him.
Right.
And we blame God, And so I think it's important for us to realize that, go talk to the person. Go settle it there. Go settle the score there.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 5, conflict handled well strengthens our body. It strengthens our physical body, our mental body, our mental space, our spiritual, our emotional space, but it also strengthens our body as a church, as a community. It will strengthen, it will fortify. Hey, we go to war with these people. We're at war with the people. We go to war against, the world with these people. There's constant it's very dynamic. Loving people is dynamic. It's not all roses and, just beautiful sunrises and rainbows. This whole relationship thing is very dynamic.
Yeah.
You love somebody one day and the next breath you want to strangle them for doing that thing or dropping the ball or being completely irresponsible for the thing that you gave to them or not missing an email or not showing up on time. There's a fine line between when you're pleased with somebody and you're displeased with somebody. It's natural, it's dynamic, but you always want to toe that line and always stay on the right side to protect this body, to protect your physical space as well. We're all living and breathing, in this space, and we don't want it to be cluttered with garbage and gossip and animosity and all the yuck feels. You'll go through that, but it's what you're going to do with it. Is it going to grow you, and is it going to bring self-awareness, and is it going to be a thing that you're like, okay, this is an area of my life that I need to go before God and surrender, or I need to grow in this. You know, it's a constant like deliberating. Where am I at? How's my heart in this situation? The worst thing we could do is clutter up this space and pollute it. We can't pollute this space. We have to make sure the airwaves are nice and clean and pristine so that we all can live and coexist in this space. Okay?
Yes.
All right. Number 6. The worst kind of conflict is grown out of suspicion and ignorance. You know when you're just like seeing something and you're like, oh, I bet they're going and doing, I bet they're saying, and it's like this suspicious nature where we're like, and I know for me, when I go to check my heart, because like I'm having like these little like moments where I'm just being suspicious of people and creating a narrative in my head that doesn't even exist. That's what happens when you don't confront people. You start believing the narrative in your head, and it's creating suspicion, and it's creating a wedge and division, and before you know it, you know, it's like a house divided, what? It just falls, it crumbles. And it just sits in its rubble.
Come on.
So let's just not be suspicious by nature. Let's just like, or ignorant. Like, what do ignorant people do? They ignore. They basically just ignore all the things. There's people, like red flags everywhere, alarm bells going off, but there's just like, I don't want to see it. If I see it, that means I have to stop and address it. But I'm minding my own business because that's not my problem. But if you see it and you're feeling it, it is your problem. Again, this is a space where we all coexist here, where we've got to take responsibility. If you see it, you've got to take responsibility. And I think, you know, a cluttered heart or offense, it honestly just creates separation. Separation. And a really yuck narrative in our minds. So, and then number 7, conflict is the fight for truth. Something happened. A scenario happened, let's say between 2 people or between 3 people. So you come together and you're just trying to find that intersection of truth. What really happened? Let's take all the perceptions, all the suspicion, all of the ignorance, and all of the he said, she said, and all the gossip. We remove it. Like, what actually happened? That confrontation or conflict is a fight for what happened, the truth.
Definitely. It's good.
Okay? And that takes conversation. It takes time. It takes patience. And it actually takes, you know, a level-headed person. There have been moments in meetings where there's like a huge conflict in our church, and you know, I'm asked, "Hey, what do you think about it?" And I'm not going to say anything, because if I say something, I'm talking out of my emotions. And my emotions are something I feel in the moment. But as I sit in my emotions for like 24 hours, I'm like, I shouldn't have said that. I feel really bad for saying that. I actually feel really yuck. And I'm very like dissatisfied with my reaction to it. Sometimes you gotta let your feelings just marinate for a little bit and go, okay, what's truth and what's my emotions here? Is my heart cluttered? Am I just tired? Am I just like not eating well? Am I not sleeping well? Am I overworked? And you start like taking a stock take of what's happening here, and you're like, actually, this issue blew up because of an issue here of my heart. And I'm trying to connect them to feel justified, but they're completely separate. And sometimes when you're hurt, or again, cluttered in the heart, you're looking for things to make you more mad. You're looking for things to like make you more like riled up, because you feel justified. You're like, oh, that, and then there's that, and then there's that issue, and then, see, I'm right, I'm justified. No. Go and settle that. Go and figure that out, because there's always going to be problems. You're always going to find problems to side with you. We're always going to have people, you know, that are going to frustrate you where you feel justified. But what, do you want to live justified, or do you want to live free and good and just in a state where you're constantly just like, okay, I'm self-aware. I know the things I have to grow in, but I feel like I'm on my way. I feel like I'm on my way somewhere with this.
Come on.
So those are 7 points fighting for conflict. I have a bunch of scriptures here, like, you know, Proverbs 15, obviously, this is more so for this last point that I just mentioned, but Proverbs 15:18 says, a hot-tempered person stirs up conflict, but the one who is patient calms a quarrel.
Yes.
Quarrels, fights, disagreements, they're going to happen, but somebody who's hot-tempered, you know what, the conflict is there. But what they're doing is they're going like this.
Yes.
Keep stirring it up, so it just keeps hitting the atmosphere and creating a bigger mess.
Right.
That's what a tempered person does. They just they throw more fuel to the fire. They just keep stirring it up. It's a little problem, yes, legitimate problem that needs to be addressed. But what we do is we're like, okay, let's make this bigger so I can feel good because I'm right. That's not where we're not fighting for you to, for us, for anyone to be right. You know, that's not the objective. This is like working for solid, healthy relationships. That is the goal.
Come on.
Let's see. It's, Proverbs 16:18. I love Proverbs. It's so good for this stuff because, like, you're not going to necessarily find, Old Testament, you got to dig through it a little bit. You got to know context, But, like, Proverbs is, like, really direct when it comes to, like, human heart issues.
Yeah.
So 16:28 Proverbs, it says, a perverse person stirs up conflict again, and a gossip separates close friends.
Come on.
Another one of my points that I wanted to share was, sometimes you don't see the conflict, but you're losing friendships. And that is the sign of someone who's not going after conflict or confrontation. But it's evident that you're just losing friends, or or even so, let's go on the other side of things, right? Imagine, you're offended with a person and you stop texting them, you stop calling them, you stop doing coffee. And the other person's like, they just don't answer my text anymore. They don't call me. Like, I don't even know what happened. And they lost a friend, but they weren't even told why or the circumstance around it. You just like cut them off. I just think like that's kind of crappy. You just cut people off. Have a conversation. Try to reconcile. Are you that hurt that you don't want that person in your life? I mean, I can understand if the person like stole your money or kidnapped your children or like did something big where it's like that, something like that is completely justifiable. But I'm just like, if they just are human and are just really manipulative, or they lie because they're broken, like you almost can't blame the person. They just need help. And so let's just be aware of that. Like, let's just not cut people off. Let's not be shady like that or flaky. Like, let's do opposition well. Let's try and do these really complicated relationships well with the grace and the help of God and the Holy Spirit. Okay, let's see what else I have here. Matthew 18:15 says, if your brother or sister sins, go point out their fault just between the two of you. If they listen to you, you have won them over. If they listen to you, there's actually like a little bit of a strategy when it comes to like holding somebody accountable. And this is the start of it. It's like, hey, go and have a conversation. If not, then bring somebody else into the conversation. If not, then bring the church into it. And then if not, treat them like a tax collector or a pagan. What the heck does that mean?
Oh, that's right.
We need, like, this is something I'm even trying to navigate. Like, what do we do with people that have left so angry and that have, like, just completely, like, flicked us off and just don't want anything to do with church? When you've tried to reconcile, you've had conversations. The Bible's like, treat them like a pagan or a tax collector. Which means, I don't think I should have a relationship with them anymore. And there's this narrative that's if you're not in the thickets of people church and volunteering and basically cutting your wrist open and pouring out blood for this vision, they don't want anything to do with you. That is a psychological lie thing of the world that's trying to seep in. That is a lie. There's another side to that story, okay? And I just think, like, if you've done all of those things, and you've tried to reconcile, or you want to reconcile, but they don't. They want to just hold on to the offense. What do? You just have to treat it like, okay, the relationship, there's no relationship, and that's okay. And I think you just have to end that argument there. And if you try to, like, make sense of it, or you're ruminating, or you're just, like, like in your head about it and you're like trying to make it work, or what did I do wrong, or beating yourself up over it. If you tried the things that the Bible has told us and instructed us to do, then you just have to leave it in God's hands. Give them to God. Pray for them. You know? So I just like, when it comes to that part, like in these the complexities of relationships, sometimes you just have to leave it alone and you just have to leave it in God's hands. So I think that's the end of my staffing.
Come on.
I would love to open up for some questions. We've got like 13 minutes. How do you guys feel? Like, listen, in this moment, can you just give me your rawest form of emotion? I'm not scared of it. If this riles you up the wrong way, or if you feel a certain type of way, I would really love for you to ask the question in the most transparent way, and I probably won't have the answer. Maybe I will. Maybe somebody in the room might. But I would love for you to ask some questions. Steven?
I have one. Yeah. So for me, I feel like whenever I address conflict, I'm super aggressive just because in the military it's like be eaten or be the one that's eating somebody in terms of like how you address some things. I'm super rigid sometimes, and I feel like now being able to like understand, like come from a soft space is something I'm still definitely working on. But I think that for me, I try not to address things whenever it's happening because I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. Like, okay, maybe it's just a one-off. Like, when would you recommend, or like how do you go about doing it when you realize, okay, now it's an issue, let's address it? Because I feel like maybe once it's not too many times, right? The second time is probably okay. The third time, maybe an okay, I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like for me, and then as well, when there's an issue, my face just tells me all. Like, when I'm just sitting there, I'm like, and I tend to just kind of go internal because I know whatever's gonna come out at the moment, or if I don't say this properly, it's because I'm trying to make sure that I'm saving you from how I speak, because not everybody can understand where I'm coming from.
For sure.
So
I think what I'm hearing is that you almost like with every step along that process, you start losing grace. And I think you don't want to come to the point where you have no grace to offer the person any longer.
Right.
So you have a window where you can offer grace. And Chris has talked about a theme. So maybe the theme is like twice or 3 times. You have to figure out what that looks like for you as somebody who is a bit more aggressive in their confrontation. But I think you want to always approach them in love and not already like done. Like, I'm done with you. Yeah. Like, your theme, I'm sick of it. Like, you're just annoying at this point, and I'm just like, I'm over it, you know? Yeah. So I think you've got to get to it before you get into that headspace. So for you, I would probably, like, go to the person in grace the first time and go, hey, this happened. I don't know. Maybe you're just having a rough time. I just wanted to open up a dialogue and just communicate. Are you good? How can I help? Second time around, hey, I know we talked about it before, but like I just still want to come and like just show you what I've seen, and what I'm picking up. Yeah. What are your thoughts? Yeah. That way you're kind of going along the process that's a developing theme, but you're meeting them with grace and you're meeting them with like a little bit of gas in the tank, Good. And then it comes to a point where you're like, okay, I've said this 4 times. Like there may be a consequence or some kind of like shift on team, or maybe a boundary you have to put up with the person if they're a family member or a friendship that you're just like, man, I'm giving. I just feel like you're not taking the advice, or you're just wasting time. Like, what was the last thing? And you hold them to the last thing you told them to do, and then you don't expect anything from them. I think the thing is, we get mad at people, and our grace wears very thin when we have an expectation for them. And when people are unable to deliver and that reciprocation isn't coming back to you, that's where we end up, again, the grace just, it's just not there. It's like, evaporated. Right. So I think it's not towing the line of like, am I putting too much expectation on this person for me personally? Yeah. And you don't want it to become personal. Right. It is personal because you love the person, you want a relationship, but it can't be personal where it's like now they're encroaching on your like your barometer for like health and whatnot. So does that help?
Yes, it does.
Okay, good. Phew. One in the books. I answered one. Anyone else have a question?
I have a question.
Yes.
Sorry. Oh, go ahead. Oh, okay. So I think like Stephen, sometimes I worry that, or I feel like when I do have to have difficult conversations, I think my face gets a little bit like, it's not the best, right? And I would like to learn how to maybe communicate my grievances better. So I guess, what's your advice on that? And yeah, like, so, I guess I'm realizing that it's a lifelong thing of like maybe facial expressions and things that are not always the greatest.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Is that a present day, like, feedback from people, or has that just been something you've been told your whole life?
Oh, wow.
Because I think what happens is we've been told something our whole life, and then we're like, that's who I am, that's how I bring up, that's how I'm perceived when it comes to conflict, so that's how I am.
Yes.
But you don't know if you're like that because you haven't been given that current day feedback. So Danielle, I honestly believe, like, you have, in my dealings with you and just, spending a lot of time with you, I think you are a very soft person. I think you're a no crap, no nonsense kind of girl, which is good, and it's good to have that kind of personality in the mix here. But I just think sometimes you have to trust the redeemed Danielle, and you have to trust God in you. You have to trust your words, and you have to trust your wisdom when you come to those difficult conversations. And let your words soften the blow. Let your words soften the facial expressions.
Yes.
And cut off all those name tags from the past.
Yes, amen.
That's just, I don't know. But I don't know if there's part 2 to your question.
Yeah, that's so good.
No, like that, I did not expect that answer. That really, yeah, thank you.
I love you, Danielle.
Love you.
Was it Ileana that had a question?
Yes. So I think opposite of Steven's point, I'm someone that grew up with a lot of negative conflict. So for me now, it's like hard for me to even approach conflicts because like I think it's just like how what it used to mean before.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's like, how does someone walk out? Someone that has this, like, it's almost like I don't want to say like a fear of conflict, but just like it's uncomfortable. Like, how would you say someone like that walks it out?
Yeah. So I think what happens is, like, you've done conflict a certain way your whole life, and it's strong, it's abrasive, it's black and white, it's like very much like, I don't care about your feelings, this is it, And then you come into this like environment where now you're like, okay, that's probably not the way to go. So what happens is you shy away from it, or you lessen it, and you're like, oh, I just want to I want to talk about something, but it could be me, and I'm really sorry, and I might have perceived it wrong. And then you just start doubting and questioning your delivery. And, I think this is going to take a little bit of practice. You're going to probably stumble across how to do conflict resolution, to find your words, find the right time. And I think it's always good to let the person know hey, I'm a highly confrontational person, and I've done confrontation really bad, and now I'm like on the redeeming side of it, and my heart here is to restore this relationship or to fix the cracks. I might come across abrasive, or I might come across a little bit aloof, or like trying to take or overcompensate and over apologize. But I'm just trying to find my feet. I think honesty and transparency is so important. And I think if the person knew that, and if they can see your heart in a conversation, I think that they would be open and graceful to reconciling, But you gotta figure it out. There's a little bit of like wrestling with these two extremes, where it's like, abrasive or just too accommodating. You gotta meet in the middle, because you don't want to compromise you either in this. Like lessening who you are, lessening your narrative because you feel like you might be perceived wrong. Because I'm sure you have a reason and merit for bringing something up to somebody. So I think transparency, and then just like practice as well.
Can I say something to that point?
Yeah.
So I think with Ileana, like something that I realized why I didn't do confrontation well was I had the doubt of myself, like, was I right? Should I say this? But I think being in a community, in an environment where this is a value of ours, I could feel something, right? And then I could hear or see like Aud's response, like, oh, I felt that. I was gonna, like, or, Courtney's response, and I'm like, I got the same thing, and I started trusting my intuition and the things that, like, the Holy Spirit was putting in my heart for different situations. So being in community, like, the longer you're in it, you start to learn, like, by others as well. So that's, like, helped me to not, like, doubt myself 24/7, because it's a learning process where you're like, I don't know if I'm right, I don't know if this is okay, but yeah, for me, I'm like, if you're attentive to, like, even just how other people approach it and can glean from one another, that's, like, truly, truly helped me be like, I should not doubt my instincts and my discernment, my intuition, because, like, a lot of the time it is spot on, but I had, I just, through time, am able to, like, have grown in that, because I've been, like, using others in my community to kind of gauge that as well, so.
It's good.
I don't know if that helps, because it is a process, but yeah.
Yes, no, that's so good. Thank you all for this. This was really good stuff. I joined late, but I'm gonna have to listen to it again, but this is really, really good. So
Yes, love it. We got a in-room person, Adam, just that.
This could be from either your early days as a leader or from like the past couple of years. What are some of the practices and disciplines you put in place to identify conflict that doesn't always like hit you in the face?
That's good. That's a good question.
Yeah. Yes, because a lot of my because I walk into a room and my emotional antennas just go off. I wish I can turn them off because it is so exhausting to feel so much. So it doesn't always hit me in the face, but it's often what I'm sensing. So I'm like, why am I sensing this? Well, they didn't say anything, or I didn't see anything, but I'm sensing this, And sometimes I've had to learn to just like sit in it and just let a narrative play out with the person. I'm like, man, I've been sensing that from that person, and they're showing it now in their behavior. So then you're like, okay, now that's something that I have to go and have a conversation, or that's an issue that we now need to pray into, or we need to whatever. And then there's other moments where it's not even anything to do with anyone in the room. It's literally just me. Like, I'm just frustrated with a situation, or I'm just like in a mood, or I'm just I'm just not feeling it, And I'm just like, is it them? Is it an actual thing, or is it me? And I think that the one of the best practices that I had to develop over the years was I was like fly off the handle. If I felt something, I would just like, Whereas now I'm like, I have to just sit it and marinate in it 24 hours, 48 hours, and just like, is this me? What is this? I take it to God. I deliberate with Chris, and he starts asking me questions. This is where the relational piece is really important. Like if you have a partner, or, like a Jonathan and David relationship in this circle where you're like, hey man, all right, I'm feeling this. I'm frustrated. It's not gossip, but I'm like spewing up because I need some advice, So sometimes there were moments where I had to write my emotions down and like be real honest with the way somebody was making me feel. And then I had to go and be like, I would never let anyone read this journal. Like, it's so bad, you guys. But it's not bad, like, I'm like a serial killer bad or anything, but it's more just like my feelings. Like, you have to get your feelings out.
Yes.
A lot of people have anxiety and depression because they don't get their feelings out.
Right.
There's not an avenue or some kind of portal for them to just throw all of their emotions to. And sometimes it's prayer, sometimes it's writing in a journal, sometimes it's with a friend, sometimes with your spouse or your partner or your leader, whatever that is. But you got to get those things out. And sometimes you need an outlet where you're like, please don't judge me. I just need to get this out. And then let them speak. And if you're on the receiving end of that, let the person talk. Let them talk. Get it out, get it out, get it out, get it out. I'm like, okay, is it out? All right. Are you good? Do you feel better? Actually, I do feel better. I just needed to get it out. Okay. Or I got it out, but I just now need to untangle all of this mess. You just need somebody to help you pull it apart. Somebody that can make sense of it. And sometimes it's not even the relationship. Again, it's probably just you, and your heart is just not good. And you just need somebody to go, I think you're just tired. I think you just need to, like, I don't know, eat
That's
something
good.
healthy.
So good.
really good.
All right. One more question. I know it's 12 o'clock. We'll go 2 more minutes. If you have to go, you can go. But just one more question if there's a question.
Yeah, Liz, I have a question.
Yes, Mr. Fields.
So at what point do you say, you know what, I really need to bring a third person in because I have such a strong personality and they don't, and kind of the seek-wise counsel to have them along, especially if the other person has a great relationship with them, and just have them be in the conversation, out of a love and respect. And then at what point do you actually go outside and say, hey, you know what, I need somebody praying for me for this engagement off to the side? And if so, what would that prayer be like?
Yeah, that's really good. I think about that because we've had a few situations transparently with, a family dynamic that we're still navigating and we're still trying to figure out the right course. And there's moments where like that third party is wanted and welcomed, and then there's a situation where the third party isn't, like the conversation was enough, there was no reconciling, there was no coming to any kind of agreement or any kind of reconciliation, so it was like, let's just agree to disagree and walk away, and I think it's in those moments where you haven't come to a reconciliation, where you have to pull on someone who is not necessarily biased or in the situation, that you can disclose your part, and that, like, for instance, I had a situation recently, it was no reconciliation, so I called Mama Helen Burns. She's my spiritual mama, and I called her and we had a really great conversation, and she just encouraged me, and she's praying for me, and I just think wherever you cannot make amends and it's messy and it's yuck, you just pull on somebody that's outside of the scope here, that can really just help and pray, and not take a side, and not stroke your shoulder and just be like, you're right, yes, they're wrong. No, somebody that's gonna hold the line and just be like super supportive in prayer for you. So having that person is really, really important. I don't know what that looks like in this scenario. I know that there are people that are wise. I trust the Joneses in that. So if there's ever a moment where you need to just maybe not disclose in full detail like what's happening, but you just need somebody to come alongside and pray for you for wisdom, they're really great for that. I just really want to see more people in our church rise to that, and even in Eric, and in Audrey, to like come in and like his wife, not me, Audrey, but just be able to come in and be that like prayer chamber for you, where it's like, I'm gonna pray. And then to the first question, when is the right time to bring a third person in? When you got two hot-headed people that are, they want to work it out, but they just can't work it out. I think the answer is, or the necessity for inviting a third person would be for that kind of scenario, where you're like, you got two people that want to make it work, but they don't know how. Let's get somebody in to help. And typically somebody that's outside of the little web, because a web sort of forms in situations in church where it's like, it's not only two people, it's like 6 people now, because you have your friends involved and everyone's like gossiping about it, and that's why gossip is so yuck. Get somebody in that's neutral, that can just be like, hey, shut up.
Come on.
This is what he's saying. This is what she's saying. Hear what they're actually saying. They're meaning what, they're saying what they mean, and they mean what they say. Take it for them at their word. You good? Yes. You good? Yes. Shake, kiss, make up. Are we ready to keep building? Yes. Let's go. Sometimes you need people to snap it out of you and just be like, hey, we ain't got time for this. Say what do you got to say? What is it? What's the problem? So I don't know if that's a little bit too like, but sometimes you need somebody to like slap you around a little bit.
Let's go.
In the best way.
Yes, amen.
All right. 12:06. I'm so sorry. I wish we had another hour, but maybe I'll do like a part 2 or something.
Come on, yes.
3 questions. Okay, we have 3 questions. Maybe I'll ask Chris if I could take next week. Invite somebody to Staffy, because I think this will really benefit people. I love you all. Go and dominate in the workplace. Be faithful with what's in your hands. Let's really be praying into Sunday. God is doing something amazing. How great was it that so many people like put their hand up for salvation? So cool. Anyway, love you all, and see you during the week.